And speak to Willem, a security analyst and senior training coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies. Also, Dr. Ongama Mtimka, political analyst as well as lecturer in the Department of History and Political Studies at the Nelson Mandela University. A very good evening to you both, and thank you so much for your time. So, let me start with you, Ongama. Did day one live up to the expectations you had going into this?
Good evening to you and your viewers. So the expectation for me was, in a serious platform like this, could General Mkhwanazi maintain the allegations, the explosive allegations that he made on that day, and can he survive initial scrutiny? And I think that that happened, save for the one question that was asked around the nature of the risk, which I felt that the advocate, the senior counsel, Sello, kind of was too quick to move away from that point to ask General Mkhwanazi to characterize the exact nature of the risk he was perceiving if action had not been taken. Otherwise, outside of that, I was, inspired to see the level of professionalism that remains among a remnant of officers in the political within SABC, because I think that's the point that Mkhwanazi drove today, to say that yes, he's making some allegations, some of which may not be tested in terms of his affidavit that's before the commission, but at a later stage will be corroborated with evidence. And that was very inspiring to see that there is a group of officials within SABC that are seemingly fighting for the right thing, the remnant, as it were.
And for you, Willem, because one of the issues when one thinks about security, there's something you did raise, which is around security, given the fact that these are public hearings and security will need to be as tight as possible, given the sensitivity of the information that the Commission is likely to hear. When you look at today, was that concern addressed for you?
Good evening to you, and good evening to Dr. Ongama. Yeah, I think we were there from early morning, and in the early stages, it was not. It was very, very yeah. They were finding their feet and they were organizing themselves, as you can expect from a first day, from early on. But I think by the time the proceedings started, things were in place. It could have been in place a little bit earlier. But the physical security was, I think, adequate. So that should do it. But what is very important for us also now is to not only the security of course, the Commission, but also the people that's going to testify in front of the Commission, and also that evidence. How are they going to secure it? That is also something that is a concern.
And you speak about that, right? Because, Willem, one of the most interesting things is that even at the beginning, we heard the chief evidence leader, for example, Advocate Mutau, saying that the allegations will be approached with an open mind. And one wonders, though, right, given the nature of the allegations and how they continue to, put this perceived threat on our national security out there in the public domain, with many people believing what the general is saying, but also others saying the skepticism. How challenging is this likely going to be, especially when you think about how the court of public opinion is ruling?
Yeah, I think, if you look at the first day today with General Mkhwanazi, when he appeared, I think he remained composed. He appeared that he was professional. He appeared that he was well prepared. He had answers was good. If you look at his affidavit or his statement was well drafted. But also we see that some of the allegations that have been made, especially about the letters and where the dockets were, etc. He attached the official documents to that to as proof of what he was saying. So if he's going to continue in this fashion, we think that he might just win over a few of the skeptics. But also what we see is that it seems from the Commission side, it's open questioning from the commissioners themselves. They're also very involved and also asking questions, and that is very important. This Commission, if it's got the illusion that it is not transparent, it will lose a lot of its credibility. So what we saw today is that there are indications that they are moving in that way, that they want it to be transparent.
And speaking about transparency, Ongama, before I come to you, I just want us to take just one part of what he had to say, particularly when he speaks about this issue of the dockets. And I'm not sure if we do have that soundbite, and just listen to some of what he had to say. All right, we'll circle back to that a little later on. But Ongama, when you think about the fact that right now you say that he's standing his ground, and it's quite a big stage, one would say, but also he's not on stage alone. The criminal justice system itself is on stage here. Given what the chairperson had to say in his opening remarks, how devastating will it be if it does happen that at the end of this, his allegations are indeed proven to be true?
Well, there's a lot in terms of information that's already in the public domain, that most of it actually may be true. And I think that for me, we must also be set free from this deficiency mentality that we have in South Africa, which tends to focus on the next thing that we are still missing and not celebrate the small victories. So it was only a short while ago when he went out in the public domain as a last resort to try and raise attention to this matter. And hardly 3 months, we are having a commission of inquiry that's looking at the matter. That's a big thing. People have kind of criticized commissions that they may not yield credible evidence that can be used to prosecute people. But when you are dealing with complex web of relationships and activities, it helps to initially start with commissions of inquiry, where the test for evidence is a lot lower or lesser than it is when you need to prosecute people and convict them. Why? Because they provide the initial lead generation that then helps law enforcement agencies to take cases forward. Just last one on this issue of the potential for the evidence to be true and the consequences thereof. What was so inspiring for me today was to learn that within the police there's proven templates that work, which include multidisciplinary teams that have been tried and tested, and were being executed when it comes to the political killings task team, and to learn that there are ways in which we can get things right in the country. Now, those things, even though initially they may be drops in the ocean, are good grounds for building something that may be resilient and be able to respond to networks like these, should they be proven true. The other thing that I commend General Mkhwanazi of is how he described at length the political management process that he personally undertook outside of the formal communication platforms in order to try and salvage what's left of effective policing and investigations in this multidisciplinary team. And I think that was confidence inspiring. So it shows that the system may be facing an onslaught, but there are offshoots within the law enforcement agencies that are fighting back and that need our support.
And Willem, right on that point, let's speak about this granular detail, right? Especially about the special operational methodology, which he says is behind the task team. And also he speaks about the model that allowed investigators to access forensic services and intelligence resources directly, right? And let's talk about just how crucial this aspect is when it comes to the inner workings of this task team.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. And I think that is also one of the reasons why we saw and he defended also the success rate of the task team. We see when they have access, one of the main challenges you have in court today is that especially your forensic evidence, it takes months and sometimes years before that is being delivered because of the huge backlog and other challenges. And we see that with this fast tracking of this evidence of the task team, because of the procedures in place, it actually afforded them to get better and faster results than would have normally been the case. But also in a task team like that, it's tried and proven and tested where you have your multidisciplinary interdisciplinary task team, where you have all your different disciplines that can contribute to the investigation that are actually part of the task team. You know, that is just a model, it's a success recipe that has been used in South Africa since the early 2000s. And I think they fell back on that, and that is why it was so successful.
Yeah, when we come back, please stay with us. When we come back, I want us to listen back to what he says about the dockets, what he says about the syndicates, but also listen to some of the voices from ordinary South Africans. You know, our colleague is on standby with some people just on their views on day one, and even some of the comments on social media. But for now, let's take a breather, and we'll continue then with our conversation in just a moment. All right, thank you so much for staying with us as we look closely at the day one of the Madlanga Commission. The KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Mandela Commission, is, of course, the first witness. He's had quite a bit to say, but one can only get a sense that there is going to be some meat to some of the bones there that is much needed, particularly when you think about some of the allegations that he's made. And we know that the Commission is going to be taking, you know, doing its work in 3 phases. It's now his time, and then those that are implicated will then come and be able to give their side of the story, and then he is going to come back a little later on to be able then to give a response to some of what would have been said by those who are then implicated in that, and of course the briefing that we now know as the briefing of July the 6th, which started all of this entire turmoil getting us to this particular moment. But one of the most interesting moments has been the dockets, and we've seen this play out in the public domains with at some point the dockets being in one place in Gauteng, and then the dockets being moved to KwaZulu-Natal, and then also concern, as some were saying, is the Commission going to now have the dockets, and if it does this not then interfere with the work? Will it be copies? Will it not? So let's listen to what he had to say on that matter.
On a telephone conversation that I had with him, which I did not reflect on the statement, was exactly that I'm told that the dockets have been taken to Pretoria. Whether did they authorize such? And he said, no, we never authorize such transfer or movement of case dockets. And the National Commissioner, in supporting what he said to me, he had given me an affidavit. I've seen an affidavit that he wrote under oath, where he indicated that he never authorized JRSB to take these dockets. And that was in June. I beg your pardon, in July. The affidavit was dated in July. And I also know that during the recent court process where Lieutenant JRSB had submitted an urgent application in court about his placement at home or leave of absence that he was challenging, and subsequent to that intention to suspend. That on the submission that was made by the National Commissioner to the court papers, he says the same thing that he had said to me, that he never authorized the dockets to be moved from KwaZulu-Natal to Pretoria.
So, if I understand you correctly, you learned from the affidavit deposed by the National Commissioner in that matter, and the National Commissioner subsequently confirmed to you directly, personally, that he never authorized the transfer of those dockets.
The National Commissioner personally, he told me that he never authorized it, and then affidavits that followed confirmed the same thing.
And do you know whether or not the dockets were duly transferred? You said on the 20th, by the 20th of May, when you learned, they had been transferred, right?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Do you know what became the fate of those dockets after they left the control of the political killings task team?
Well, the political killings task team members were complaining to me that they are receiving unindicted complaints from the members of, the family members of the victims of crime that they were in constant contact with as they were investigating these cases, in order to seek update on the work that the team is doing, and the team could not give them update.
And we are still in conversation with Willem Els as well as Ongama Mtimka. Willem, you and I have chatted about these dockets and the importance and how crucial they are, particularly to these allegations. He says the dockets were fully intact, and that also gives a signal to just how central they are to this process.
Yes, of course. We must understand that even though these dockets are very central to this process and are also one of the causes for what we are having here today, that the investigation of those dockets does not lay with the Commission. It remains the investigation duties of the police, and whether it is now some other or whether it is this task team, because at the end of the day, that is what they need to do. And that is when what we also said is that ever since they received the dockets back, there has already been some arrests that have been made. So that's a process that is completely different and separate from this commission. This commission have to establish different things, and the docket is there to bring justice for a criminal investigation. So we should just separate those two. But that it is central to what we are doing and what we are having here in Pretoria, that is very, very true. And also, nothing prevents the commission to summon or to ask that those copies of those dockets being delivered to them, that they can have a look at it. But the original dockets, they said it was intact, and that is important because one of the things that is really challenging within the detective service is when evidence is illegally removed from dockets and evidence disappear from dockets. So they said that they had an audit, and it appeared that all the evidence was still in the dockets, and that is important.
And Ongama, you alluded to some of the moments that stood out for you when it comes to this particular process. I just want to take some of our viewer comments and circle back to that, because there is a question that I do have linked to that. And if we can bring up some of the tweets that the viewers would have sent, because we're asking you tonight, what do you make of the day one and Black Ngamla saying, I think the general is well prepared and articulate. They're going to try and poke holes in his allegations. He must stay strong. We believe him regardless of the outcome of this commission. I'm so glad Mr. Senzo Mchunu is implicated. Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is so smart and prepared. He should be President, National Commissioner of South Africa. The man should be protected. Sonia, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is so professional. I wish Mr. President can recommend and send all implicated to prison. I want to see Mr. Mchunu homeless, their property and pension funds be forfeited. Stirman, hi my people. Hello, General Mkhwanazi is definitely dealing with the cater deployment mafias. I want this commission to be successful so that we will know the truth behind crime in this country. I'm behind Mkhwanazi. I support him. All right, a disclaimer, these are the views of our viewers, certainly not the views of the SABC. And Ongama, when you look at these views, right, they tell a story. And when you think about how even when he started this morning, social media was abuzz with people saying that we believe you no matter the outcome. It also speaks to the members of the public that are watching this, but also the credibility of institutions that are probing such allegations in restoring the public trust, especially when it comes to commissions in this country.
Yeah, so he's enjoyed a lot of public support, not just since the revelations, but also throughout the work they have done to try and clamp down on organized crime, especially cash in transit heists. Now, what was interesting for me is when he actually confirmed that communication strategy and communication processes were part of their arsenal as a team in order to try and influence or communicate as in terms of what the word that he used. And this was very interesting for me, how aware they are as a team of securocrats of the responsibility to manage communication. Now, they have been mostly successful, both in terms of justifying the conducts that they make, eliminating people, but also in terms of the current narrative. What's going to be interesting and whether it's going is whether they're going to remain seen as the heroes in the binaries that have been created around this narrative of who are the heroes and who are the villains. And the avenues that his naysayers are going to perhaps try to do on two fronts. One, the casting of aspersions on his own conduct that may or may not be related to some of the things that he has said. Secondly, the highlighting of professional mistakes that have been conducted and subsequent investigations that have then taken place. To me, that, and because I've seen this coming out among spooks in the country, where so far those counterattacks have failed, they have failed to point to a coordinated bad faith conduct by Mkwanazi and associates, which actually paint him in the same fashion as the people that he's trying to fight that are compromising law enforcement. So people who've criticized him have talked about how some of the special forces linked to him have killed people, and it's been the wrong people allegedly. And all of those, in my view, have not necessarily so far cast aspersions on his intentions and integrity.
And Willem, when you think about, speaking especially about intelligence and classified information, there was this interesting point that he makes about the Interministerial Committee. And he says that it approved the strategy, it approved the budget of the political task teams, the political killings task team. And then he says, when he's asked, the minutes would have to be provided, he says the minutes are in fact classified. It also signals yet another issue here, that this commission is going to have to deal with classified information, and in some cases we may need to see possibly requests or even moves to try and declassify some information. How do you strike a balance here between what needs to be heard in public and what still needs to remain classified?
Yeah, I think that's a classic question on what is classified for the public and what is served for the purpose of the case. So it is very important that we understand, when they talk about that strategy, a strategy is normally not classified. It's your operational plan, and then also the minutes and what's going with that. Those are the stuff that is normally being classified, because your strategy just speaks in broad terms of what the intention, what the objectives and everything is. Your nitty-gritty or your tradecraft of how the unit operates, what they do, etc. That is normally some of the things that can be classified, because it might give away their modus operandi, how they gain information. For instance, do they have informers within communities, and so on and so on. And that needs to be classified. But obviously, the commission also mentioned today that there has been one application already, or they're in process for some of the things to be declassified. So we believe that is going to happen, but we have to also understand that some of these documents will be in camera, and that is why it was also decided that some of the sessions will be in camera.
Sure, it's going to be an interesting one. Ongama, how do you see it unfold? Because even in the ad hoc committee in Parliament, this is a sticking point to say that how do you deal with classified information?
I was quite covered by what the chief evidence leader said today about how they are going to handle that. And I appreciated the fact that the commission itself is aware about the imperative to keep some of those classified, because he made reference to ongoing cases, for example, but also sheer national security issues. The obligation is then going to be on the commission to try and decode from what's classified for the public domain. When it comes to Parliament, that's what I'm more anxious about, because in Parliament, unfortunately, you have a lot of bad faith actors. Our politicians have left too much to be desired when it comes to their integrity. Some of them are going to want to use some of this information not for the purposes of establishing the truth and making the necessary recommendations in terms of corrective action. Some of them are going to want to use some of this explosive evidence in order to score cheap political points. So that's where the greater risks lie. I'm happy and I'm comfortable with how the Commission itself is interpreting the tensions when it comes to the need to manage both the need for transparency and to protect national security and, in fact, the integrity of ongoing investigations.
And briefly, a final one then, Willem, for you. Can this commission, in your view, mark a turning point, particularly when it comes to crushing syndicates that thrive on political protection?
Yes, I think for one thing, this is new beginnings for law enforcement, also for rule of law in South Africa. It's a possible turning point. But what is encouraging with the mandate of the commission is that while the commission is ongoing, they've got the power to refer some of these events and incidents to the investigators for immediate investigation. So that means that even before the final report is out, there might have been some people that have been arrested because of what's coming out in the commission.
I'm tempted to say to both of you, please don't go too far because we still have a couple of months of going through this each and every single day. And I almost feel like we're going to be calling on you quite a lot. Thank you so much for talking to us, though. Appreciate your time this evening. That was Willem, security analyst and senior training coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies, Dr. Ongama Mtimka, political analyst and lecturer in the Department of History and Political Studies at Nelson Mandela University.